Welcome in. It is Backstretch Banter on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio Channel 90. We're coming out of Michigan, going to Daytona. 2 weeks left to go. 2 races before the playoffs. And for RFK, the 6 is in as of now. So is the 17. But there's some work left to do. Let's get into it as we get ready for Daytona. We got a great guest with us to start the show today. Aaron Kramer is with us, who is the chief engineer for the Ford Mustang, the number 17, driven by Chris Buescher, which this week is the Fifth Third Bank Mustang, which we're going to have a guest on a little bit later. That car, the wrap, looks phenomenal this week. But let's talk to the engineer, Aaron Kramer. Great to have you on the show, man. How you doing with 2 weeks left to go in the regular season?
I'd be doing a lot better if we were in the same position the 6 was in, but feel like we got a little bit of momentum, had a decent weekend in Michigan, and came out of there better than when we went in, so that was a good weekend for us.
Give us an idea of the playoff conversation internally this week. There's 2 weeks left. You gained a spot. They were the 17 car was in 16th, up to 15th after a good weekend, and finished number 6. So got some points there. I think it's the Watermelon Man who snuck in to the number 16 spot now. So work left to do, but take us through last week and the conversation that is being had as we speak about the 17 in the playoffs.
Yeah, so Chris is a self-proclaimed not points racer, right? Like he doesn't like to have that conversation, and as a team, we don't like to have that conversation either, but you'll take the points when they're there. It was a different picture with 15 laps to go in that race. The one had some positions on us, and it looked like we were going to be okay on the cut line, but the 23 was fast to start the race, and it can all change in a minute. So we're not comfortable with the position we're in. We still have plenty of work to do, but you look at Daytona, we won there last year, and then Darlington, we were leading with just a few laps to go in the spring there. So 2 good racetracks for us. We still have the expectation for ourselves and for our team that we're going to go win one of these things. And that has to be the goal, because you can be running in the top 5 and get wrecked out in one of these things and be in a totally different position than you thought you were if you're points racing.
Is there anything that you've noticed that's different from last year when Chris got on a roll and won those 3 races that's maybe missing this year? Or is it just luck? Is it just flat out, sometimes it goes your way and sometimes the tire falls off, or sometimes for whatever reason they move the start-finish line and Kyle Larson wins a race, or whatever it is, right? Like it's been wild this year to see some of the luck that we've had. And maybe for the 17, if it wasn't for bad luck, we wouldn't have any up to this point. Hopefully that'll change. And I think that's still pretty strong considering the 17's in the 15th spot right now. But is there any difference, or is it just luck?
There is some luck involved, unfortunately. You look at the races that we had an opportunity to finish well and we didn't. I feel like there's some circumstantial things there that were just racing. But we've also not executed in some areas the way that we did last year. We were, from a racecraft standpoint, pretty flawless last year. We had 1 DNF and we didn't have really any penalties and had a pretty strong year. And we've had loose wheels and we've had pit road penalties and we've had some issues, and it's not all just pit road. We've not hit setups the way we need to hit them on a couple occasions, but I think that there's a small lack of execution that we didn't have last year, and a lot of times that is just from luck, that you can get on a roll and it seems like everything's going your way and you almost can't screw it up. And this year hasn't been that way. We started off strong. We've had some strong showings, but we need to clean up some stuff to get into the playoffs, and we certainly need to clean up some stuff to make a run deeper into the playoffs than just making it.
This would be a great time to get on a run. It would be,
for sure,
it would be ideal to get into victory lane this week and potentially next week, and get into the playoffs and win again like last year when Buescher got hot, and then all of a sudden, you're in a position to try to win a championship. I've said it all year. I think the cars have been good enough for this team to be there in the top 4 when it's all said and done for the championship. It just, whatever it is on a given weekend, it's gotta go your way with this backstretch of the season coming up with 2 weeks left to go in the regular season and the playoffs ahead of us. But fingers crossed, toe crossed, we have both cars in with the 6 and the 17. Take us inside Daytona from your perspective as the head engineer for the 17. How different is this week? Anytime you go to one of these super speedways and you have to have the plate on, how different is your job, if at all, preparing the vehicle?
From a vehicle dynamics and setup standpoint, this is actually one of the easier weeks.
Okay.
NASCAR specs our rear geometry for the speedway cars, so there's not a whole lot to think about there. And obviously, we have a speedway package that has proven itself to be very fast and good drafting, good stability. We have a package there that we know we can go win with, and we don't have to stray far from what we're doing. Daytona is more of a strategy track. It's about getting on pit road with a group and getting off pit road with a group, and minimum time for fuel, and making sure that you execute your pit road strategy flawlessly and with a group of cars that you can draft with. But it is marginally easier from a vehicle dynamic setup standpoint for sure.
What's the hardest? Is it the shorter tracks that are the most
I
challenging?
think the short track stuff, especially this year with the new low downforce simple diffuser underbody, has taken what you thought you had for a good short track package and changed it up a little bit. And we've gotten to a point where we're pretty comfortable with our short track stuff. We ended last year really strong at Phoenix. We arguably had the best car there and had some issues that prevented us from getting to the winner's circle, but we're back to that point where we feel pretty good about our short track package. But it does take more work. That's typically where you're paying attention to tire wear and fall off more is the short track stuff.
How much does the tire aspect of it factor into your job as the head engineer? We've had some, interesting tire situations. A couple of weeks ago, the tires were, running in a interesting way early on. Certainly weather and all that, and the forecast plays into everything. But how much of that how much do the tires, which you don't manufacture yourself, and, certainly everybody has a level playing field there, but how much do they factor into what you do?
Yeah, so obviously Goodyear's doing some different things with tires this year, with the softer compound option tires and wanting to run on rain tires more often. There's more to think about for sure than if you just showed up with one tire and you didn't run in the rain. The tires themselves are the only thing that touch the racetrack, right? So that has to be your primary source of focus, is how do you make the tires live longer than the people you're racing against while also not sacrificing performance. So ultimately, everything that you do to the car is about getting tire performance out of the car and managing the trade-off and how quickly you'll wear the tires out.
It's pretty interesting. It is. And I'm sure there's just unbelievable science that goes into the most minuscule difference that can help a car stay on the track longer and get more tread out of the tire or whatever it is. I'm sure you're thinking about that. You're thinking about the fuel aspect of it and all kinds of different things. Give us an idea before we get to race day. You're the head engineer for the number 17 car. What does a typical week look like? And I got to imagine this week's a little different because we didn't race until Monday. So I don't know if things got jammed together. If it matters, because you said the setup's a little bit easier for Daytona, so maybe the lost day doesn't kill you. But I'm curious what a typical week looks like for a head engineer getting prepared for a race.
Typically, I will use my Monday to debrief the weekend that we just had. I'll go through notes on, in the moment, what I thought was better for car performance, if I could have brought something different to the racetrack, how the strategy played out for the race, if we made the right decisions. The benefit of hindsight is it's a lot easier to pick out if you did it right or did it wrong. So you'll come back and you'll kind of debrief your weekend, and we'll have a team meeting with us in the six and some of the competition side of our company and discuss how the race weekend went and what we might do differently going back. After that, I will take how the car was built for the upcoming weekend, and I'll go through the tire data. If there's new tire data, look over the notes from the last time we raced there and anything that we thought we might do differently, and start to build out the setup for the coming week. Typically, I'll try to have most of the hard setup done by Tuesday morning. Tuesday morning, the road crew will come in and they'll start applying any changes that Scott, the crew chief, and I have decided on. And then Tuesday is really looking at springs and shocks, trying to decide what spring options or shock options we want to bring to the track. And again, you're trying to maximize tire performance and tire life in all the decisions that we make. So Tuesday is pretty heavy on
How many options do you have from that perspective when it comes to the springs and shocks?
You have a ton of options.
So you have a variety of different ways you could look at a racetrack.
Fortunately, we're at a point in our program where we don't have to stray really far, and you don't have to think outside the box. You have a pretty good baseline that you're just trying to improve on race after race, and it can be the same track or a similar track, but we don't have to look too far outside of a known setup, which is a blessing. There was a time here, and I'm sure there's other teams going through it, where you don't know where you're at and you're throwing everything at it, hoping that something will stick. But we'll sweep some shocks and we'll sweep some springs, and we have some tools to run big simulation batches where you'll run 10,000 different options, and you have some viewers that you can look at to decide what meets the parameters that you're looking at to be the most successful. And after Tuesday, it's really about implementing whatever changes in simulation results that you came up with on Tuesday into the car on Wednesday, and then you'll load the car on Wednesday.
So simulation results, that's a whole new world that we've been in since technology has allowed us to do that. I mean, back in the day, we didn't have sim results that would allow us to look at a racetrack and make decisions. How much of the sim, how much of that data goes into your decision making, and in hindsight, how accurate is that data?
Yeah, the engineering progression in our sport has been pretty rapid. There was a period of time where teams didn't have engineers, right? And it was just a bunch of buddies in a garage who knew what race cars were. And we've gotten to the point where it started with some simple simulation tools that were physical tools. 8 posts were really a later progression, but pull down rigs and some shock machines. And then it's progressed into computer simulation. And it started out, there was some simple kinematic computer simulation to decide how the car would move when it went around the racetrack, but it didn't do a lot for driver modeling or vehicle performance. It was just to see where the car would end up, the vehicle travel when it would go around the racetrack. And then we got to the driver in the loop simulators that each manufacturer has, where the driver will actually go drive setups around a video game racetrack. And those, between our computer simulations and the driver in the loop simulations, they're incredibly accurate, and they have to be. The nature of our sport right now, with the single 20-minute practice that you don't have an opportunity to even change anything, you don't have a lot of time to figure it out if you're off. If you miss your travels or you miss your balance, you're stuck with it for the weekend. And the best you can do is try to remedy that. And sometimes you don't have in the car what you need to fix it. So having computer simulation and driver in the loop simulation, along with some of the older engineering tools that we don't use as much anymore, is critically important, because you don't have the benefit of 3 50-minute practices and a truck full of springs and shocks and parts that you can throw at it.
Is there anything we don't know about as fans that's being developed right now that's going to take it to another level? Is there? I can see it on your face. There's got to be something with AI and all that.
The progression of our sport is as fast, if or not faster, than it's ever been. There's obviously machine learning, and computers are getting better. There's ways to leverage that. I don't know that there is a big dive into that, but there's starting to be there's pieces of that I can see coming together, that you're going to see AI helping you make some of these decisions. And hopefully it's not too fast, because it's a different role than what most of the engineers in this sport are comfortable with. They're vehicle dynamics people, they're car people. That's a different life, but I think that you'll see some of that stuff.
It's like anything else. You got to change with it. You got to adapt with it, because the technology changes, and you're either going to be on board or you're going to be left behind, because somebody else that's going to be young is going to know how to do this stuff, and they're going to have learned it, and they're going to be on top of it, and then they're going to be in the same position when the technology changes again, which is just crazy. It's so damn rapid what is happening from a technology standpoint, and I gotta believe when you're dealing with machines, it could get pretty high tech pretty fast with the way things are going, especially You already mentioned it. I mean, in 10 years, it's crazy.
Yep.
How long have you been doing engineering for?
I graduated in 2016, but I've been in the
Okay.
sport professionally since 2010. I originally
Yeah.
moved to North Carolina straight out of high school. I just had ambitions to be a mechanic, and I did that for a while. Got to the point where I had kind of satisfied that need and scratched that itch and needed to know more about the decisions that were being made on the cars and wanted to have a larger influence. So went back to school and got my engineering degree in 2016.
That's pretty cool. How much do you have to do with strategy? I know, there's a lot that goes into it. The crew chief, obviously, and we'll get into your future job in a minute. But um, I would think that there's a progression that you would, find a little bit natural going from engineer to crew chief, just because you know everything about what goes into the vehicle. But give us a little background.
Yeah, so the strategy stuff, especially with stage racing, there's mathematical models that tell you the fastest way to run the stage and the race. It's not terribly hard to figure out what the best strategy is for most tracks if you have reasonable performance out of your car. The problem is when you get wrecked or the caution comes out with 10 laps to go on the stage or 5 laps outside of your fuel window. What do you do then? And how do you leverage the opportunity to take a risk versus what might be the safest way to run the race and the biggest opportunity to try to flip it or do something that you weren't really set up to do?
Let's take a break. We'll come back. I actually want to get into your new gig because you're about to leave us and go off to be a part of Haas World, which is pretty cool. And you're going to be a crew chief next year. So we could talk about that progression and what it's like for you and the foundation there at RFK and working with Buescher. We'll do all that stuff. Plenty to cover. Aaron Kramer is our guest. For now, he's the chief engineer of Chris Buescher's number 17. We'll talk more to him next right here on Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing. All right, we're back here on Backstretch Banter, Sirius XM NASCAR Radio Channel 90. I am Chris Childers, Aaron Kramer. Our guest here, we got more with him. He is the chief engineer of the number 17 Ford Mustang. Chris Buescher's car, which will be adorning the Fifth Third Bank logo this weekend. It's got a really sweet wrap on it. We're going to have a representative from Fifth Third coming on in just a few minutes. Dave Morton will be on in about 10 minutes, the senior vice president and managing director for Motorsports and Automotive Aftermarket. Cannot wait to talk to him about all the incredible things going on at Fifth Third. They have been heavily involved in NASCAR and this team for the last decade. So we got plenty to talk about there. But let's talk about the engineer who had to put all the work into the car, getting ready for Daytona this week. And the number 17 shirt certainly looking sweet with the Fifth Third wrap on it. But Aaron Kramer is our guest as this team is inching towards making the playoffs. You have a little bit left to go at RFK. You've been there for almost a decade now. I think 8 years, you said to me off the air. And then you're leaving. You're going to work for Gene Haas. You're going to be a crew chief, which has got to be unbelievably exciting to take that next step. What's it been like for you balancing all of it?
Yeah, so I was racing go-karts in middle school in Western New York and had the illusions that most kids do that they wanted to be a driver and realized that the sample size of people that I was racing against was pretty small and I probably wasn't as good as I thought I was. So I decided I was gonna work on them for a living. And the next best thing is to be the crew chief. It's been a dream of mine since I was really young, and every step that I've taken so far from Western New York to North Carolina and being a mechanic and going back to school and getting my engineering degree has been in pursuit of this opportunity. So I'm really excited about it. It's been a different world. Obviously trying to stay focused on the 17 and making sure that we make the playoffs. And I do have work to do here still. We have a lot of goals and a lot of expectation on ourselves and for the company to get into the playoffs and run deep into them. But trying to figure out how to hire people and figure out who I want to build my team with. And that's been a different part, and budgets and offers and those kinds of things that I haven't had as part of my working life yet. But it's been fun. It's been a different opportunity and a different experience for me.
Have you been able to, I don't know how cordial everybody is, but has Graves or McCall given you any advice moving forward, who are experienced crew chiefs here for the 17 and the 6? Has Matt giving you any advice, or is it, hey, buddy, we love you now, but as soon as you get out of here and you're a crew chief, it's everybody for themselves at that point?
Yeah, so luckily for me, there is an alliance between RFK and Haas next year,
Yeah.
which is
Good.
a huge reason on why I chose to do this. I think that if it had been a different team or didn't have the alliance, that I would have had pause for moving forward with it. But I really believe in Roush, and I've seen it through the not successful years, and now to be successful with the team, I really believe in a lot of the things we do here and the processes and the people and how we go about racing every week. So having that alliance has been a big reason that I wanted to take this opportunity when it was presented to me. As far as being cordial, everyone has been fine so far. We're all a race team right now, and we will be for the next several weeks. So I haven't had any issues. There's been some congratulations and good lucks, but everyone's pretty focused on making sure that we're doing everything we have to do to be successful right now.
That's mid-season. I mean, we're in the middle of it, so I totally understand the focus being there. But I'm sure a lot of people are excited for you to live that dream and to get to be able to be a crew chief. Give us an idea of the alliance and what it means. We hear that in racing. We hear that teams are, partnered up, and we certainly know about the manufacturer partnerships and all that. Daytona, for example, was a great way to see how manufacturers are aligned in the first race of the season. We had a lot of that, a lot of drafting, a lot of pack racing. But what does the alliance look like with RFK and with your new team moving forward?
So the technical alliance is all the setup information, database information, strategy tools. It will be a fully ingrained operation. We'll have access to everything that RFK has, aero data, tire data, the bit. Hopefully, the expectation is that it won't be much of a change for me, that it'll just be me learning a new job, but the day-to-day operational point will be very similar to what I have now. I'm not as naive to think that there's competition and challenge for the 6 and the 17 currently. We want to be the best car in our operation. Mm-hmm. So that will also exist between the Haas car, and it exists between the Rick Ware cars now, who we have a technical alliance with. Everybody wants to be the best, regardless of your teammates or brothers and sisters or whatever. If when we go out to compete on a Sunday, you want to be the best car no matter what. So I'm still going to have to race against these guys. Nobody's going to give me anything just because we're an alliance team. But as far as information and tools and everything, it should be very similar to what I currently have here.
Is there anything that you're worried about as far as the new job that maybe you haven't done yet? Is there anything that you're really confident about? I mean, it's a whole new world. There's certainly pressure. I mean, everybody's going to know your name when you're the crew chief. It's a big job. I mean, it's the head coach job pretty much. And certainly there's glamour that comes with it, but there's other things that come with it as well, depending on how things are going. But is there anything that you think about? You're like, man, I'm a little worried about this part, or overconfident, or you just like, whatever it is, I'm going to figure it out as we go?
Yeah. People ask me if I'm excited and nervous, and I'm both those things. I've been nervous in every role that I've had here. Every time I've had an opportunity to move up, I started in the data system group here and moved into the Xfinity side when we had an Xfinity team here. And every role that I've had and every opportunity that I've had to step up, I've been nervous for. And this is the same. It's obviously a little bit higher. The buck stops at the crew chief, and win, lose, or draw, the crew chief has to answer for it. And I've seen that in every position that I've had, that if it's a good day or a bad day, or it doesn't matter who screwed up, the crew chief has to answer for it, and the crew chief has to figure out how to remedy that situation. So I'm excited for that responsibility. It's going to be a different part of the job that I'm not familiar with, but I'm excited for the challenge. I think that I can build a team that has good camaraderie and get everybody pulling the rope in the same direction, and hopefully that leads to some early success.
Aaron Kramer, our guest here, he's the head engineer for the number 17, the Chris Buescher Ford Mustang, the 5th this weekend in Daytona. Let's go back to Michigan. Take us through the race and what happened. There was a little issue. The team was able to regroup, get things back together from an engineering perspective, from a pit crew perspective. Take us through what went wrong and how things were remedied to finish top 6.
Yeah, we had a really strong car through practice. It was a shame we didn't get to qualify. I think we would have qualified quite a bit better than where we had to start due to the metrics. Had a good car during the race. I felt like we were moving forward. You look at the cars that finished up front in the race, that we had a better day going before the wreck then. And I think we had outright speed to go run for the win. That caution when the 5 car spun, there was some other cars that were in a hurry to get to the wreck and got to us and made our day more difficult than it needed to be. But first time it came down pit road, I thought we were done. And we worked on it and came back down pit road the next time, and everything that we did to try to fix it was gone. I thought for sure we were done. But we came down pit road 4 or 5 times and kept working on it and finally got it to a point where it was drivable. And surprisingly, it still had a little bit of speed. I thought for sure that with all that tape on the front that we would have knocked considerable amount of speed out of it. But there's decent drafting at Michigan, so you were able to hide behind some other cars and in their wake and shield that a little bit. But the car handling was reasonable. It shifted a little bit, obviously, but it was workable. We got it to a point where Chris could drive it, and it had decent speed in it. And at that point, it was we're back in this and we're racing, and there's something to gain. Certainly with the cars that were racing for the playoff spot, having not great days, we had an opportunity to capitalize on that. And pit crew, car chief, everybody did a really good job in making sure the car was fixed, and not just fixed well enough to go around the track, but fixed well enough that we could still race with it.
How much goes into those decisions? Are the fixes pretty common sense, or is there some real creativity when there's a wreck and things get wonky with the car?
There has been creativity. There's sometimes an opportunity to put tape in advantageous places, but NASCAR is pretty keen on that now. There's a pretty decent chunk of the rule book that deals with crash repair and what you can and what you can't do to it. So it really is not about how can we make this a better race car. It's about how can we keep going. And between the crash repair clock that you only have 7 minutes to get it fixed back out on the racetrack, and you have to meet a minimum speed too. You can't just get it fixed and roll back out there and say you're good. You still have to be relatively competitive at that point. So it's really just about making it as good as you can make it. And there's not a lot of creativity. There's some thought in how do I get this to stick to that and not fall off. But yeah, that's really, it's about just getting back out on the racetrack.
Yeah, I'm sure. And sometimes it works, sometimes it won't stick. Yeah, it's we've all seen it happen one way or another out there on the racetrack. Aaron Kramer is our guest. It's been fantastic looking back at Michigan, and certainly the race was rewarding. How much do you talk to the other engineer at the end of the race? How much communication is there between the 6 and the 17?
We kind of do our own thing by the time the weekend starts. Brad and Chris are different drivers, and they need different things out of the race cars. Going to Daytona this week, we'll talk a lot. We definitely want to coordinate with the other Fords and with our teammates to make sure that we both have help when we need help at the end of the race, and that regardless, we can bring a win home for RFK. But really, most weekends, once the race starts, you don't have a lot of communication between the two teams. We put everything in a database, and we can look at what we're doing and not have to interrupt their train of thoughts and how they're operating. During the week, there's a lot of communication. We're comparing setups, we're comparing ideas and thoughts that we have, and making sure that one hasn't gone astray, and make sure that we both end at a reasonable point before we put them in the truck.
I always wondered that, how much, if there was competition during the week, or if there was any secrets being withheld or anything like that. And it's got to be a little different considering that the guy who's running the 6 is the K in the RFK. So you never want to piss him off, I would imagine. So it is a interesting balance indeed. Aaron, it is great to have you. Good luck next year, but more importantly right now, good luck the rest of the season. Hopefully we get in victory lane this weekend and eliminate any hope or doubt about being in the playoff in a couple of weeks. It's great to talk to you. Thank you so much. And again, good luck with everything moving forward.
Yeah, thank you. The fifth third paint schemes had quite a bit of success at Daytona, so
yes,
hopefully we can get one more.
And it looks gorgeous this week. It does. And speaking of which, we got a representative from Fifth Third. Dave Morton is going to be with us next, the Senior Vice President, Managing Director for Motorsports and Automotive Aftermarket. And we'd love to get him in victory lane. We'll talk to him next right here on Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing. We're back here. It's Backstretch Banter on Sirius XM NASCAR Radio, Channel 90, RFK Racing. Feeling pretty good. 2 weeks left to go in the regular season before the playoffs. We got Daytona coming up this weekend, which should be a lot of fun. And right now, we are going to talk to one of the partners of Fifth Third Bank. They are going to be on the number 17 car this weekend. Also, we got some pretzel bites, which look really cool on the King's Hawaiian, but for the number 6 car and Brad Keselowski. But Dave Morton is with us, who is with Fifth Third Bank, and Fifth Third has been an incredible partner for about a decade now. You know the logo, and you certainly have seen it on our cars, and it's one of my favorite wraps. I always think the Fifth Third just looks so cool on the racetrack. Dave Morton, Senior Vice President, is with us, who works on the automotive side of things with Motorsports. Dave, it's good to talk to you, man. How are you?
Hey, it's great to be here. Love that I get to join you. And I just want to set the record straight. We don't have pretzel bites, but we have cash. So
yes.
Take your pick.
And, they're both good, but if I had my picks, I'd probably go with a little cash. But Dave is with us, who's the SVP, Managing Director, Motorsports and Automotive Aftermarket. So this has been a great partnership. You are on the 17 this weekend, and it's a car that really needs to get into victory lane. So I would imagine that the car is going to be on full display this week. You're going to get a lot of airtime on NBC during the race. Give us an idea from your perspective, what you do for a living. How does motorsports function in getting a message across and helping promote what Fifth Third Bank is all about?
Well, it starts with being aligned with a winning team. And, at Fifth Third, we've been in business for 165 plus years, and we haven't gotten to where we are today by not winning. And we do that by outperforming our competitors, just like RFK Racing has done. And, thanks to legend Jack Roush. And so the way that racing works for us is that it really brings our brand to life, and although we've been around for a long time, there's parts of the country that don't know us as well as other parts of the country. We're headquartered in Cincinnati, but we have a strong presence all throughout the country, particularly from Chicago on down to Florida on a diagonal in the southeast and up in the Midwest area. So it's been a fantastic way for us to promote our brand and to a consumer base that is just as Americana as you can get, and great potential customers for us. So we love it, and we fully leverage it from on the fans, with B2B, and with employee engagement as well, because it's especially in the employee engagement. People don't think about this, but it's we have a partnership, for example, with the Bengals in Cincinnati, which is great if you're in Ohio, Southern Ohio. But the rest of the country is not as interested in the Bengals, but with RFK Racing and what we're doing with them, we're able to rally all of our employees around it, and they love it.
It's a nationwide thing. It's got even global. I mean, it's got a global fan base, but I know you're trying to attract customers in the United States. It's as Americana as it gets, and customer loyalty in this sport is real. I mean, 100%. If you got your name on a race team that we like and respect the drivers, you bet your bottom dollar we're going to at least check it out. So it is absolutely, I think, very smart, and certainly NASCAR reaches that core group of Americans that really is passionate about a lot of things, and certainly their cash and their finances being well protected and in good hands is one of them. You mentioned 165 years old. Where did Fifth Third Bank start?
So we started in Cincinnati.
In Cincinnati, wow.
Cincinnati, Ohio. And
okay.
We always get the question around our name. It's such a unique name. And
I was going to ask, why Fifth Third?
So I joke around that back 165 years ago, we didn't have a marketing department. It was just a bunch of accountants, and all they knew how to do was put numbers together. So they put a 5 and a 3 together, and then you got Fifth Third. But the reality was it was Fifth National Bank and Third National Bank merged together, and the rest is history there. But yeah, we've got a long legacy in Ohio and the Midwest, and it's fun to think about just all the people and the businesses that we've helped. And one of the industries that we've been around for a good number of those years, although we were around well before it as well, is the automotive industry. And we were there alongside of it when Henry Ford started rolling off the first Model T off the assembly line and helping the businesses that were connected to it. And we've been doing that ever since.
That's remarkably cool. I think that's awesome.
Yeah.
For fans, anytime you have an Americana company like this one that's been around for so much history and has played a part in the history, like the Ford, automotives, that's really cool. And I think that's what's so cool about right now is we get to learn a little bit about Fifth Third Bank and the history of it. You mentioned it was the fifth bank and the third bank, so that's real history. I know you can still visit the first bank and the second bank in America, and I have. So that's kind of neat to have that much history. Do you know the story, not to put you too much on the spot, but how did the bank grow over the years? I mean, right now you're using NASCAR and the Cincinnati Bengals to promote your bank, but for 165 years, we didn't have social media and stuff like that. So I'm sure the bank had to find different interesting ways to grow the way that it has all over the country.
Yeah, well, it really comes down to taking care of our customers. And, we've done a really good job of taking care of our customers, being responsible with how we grow the bank, being conservative so we never put ourselves or our customers at risk. And but continuing to invest in the bank so we're providing best-in-class services. And along the way, we've been innovators. For example, when I don't know if you remember Genie, it was the first network of ATMs across the country. Well, that was Fifth Third Bank that created Genie, and we continue to innovate along the way. We lead the way with a lot of fintech companies that we partner with or acquire to help provide better services to our clients, so that it makes banking easier, quicker, so we can provide better advice, and that's really kind of the behind the scenes of how we do it. Now we've done it through organic growth, and for example, in the Carolinas, we're on track to adding, I believe it's around 100 financial centers in the Carolinas. Over about a 5-year period or so, again, to better serve our customer base out there. We've, over the years, have made strategic acquisitions as well, where we thought markets were underserved and where we could provide value to the consumers as well as the businesses in those markets.
That's really interesting. It really is. And it's been effective. I mean, the bank is everywhere. It is visible. People know it. It's certainly one of the trusted places in this country to have your finances looked after and to get great advice about what you should do for retirement and all that kind of stuff. It's pretty incredible, the services and the banking that happens there at Fifth Third. And I mean, just look at the history like we talked about. It's been around for 160 some odd years. So when you've done it that long, you you figured it out.
Yeah.
Dave Morton is with us, right? Exactly. The Senior Vice President, Managing Director, Motorsports and Automotive Aftermarket. So how'd you guys get hooked up early on with RFK? We talked about, the why and why it's beneficial, and how did the relationship start?
So as I mentioned before, that automotive is part of our DNA, and we've been around racing for a long time and helped a number of the companies involved. And one of those companies that we thought we could really help, and they thought so too, was at the time Roush Fenway Racing, and that was back in 2010.
Okay.
And so we were one of several banks that they were talking to about moving their relationship to, and they liked the ideas that we brought to them as a bank. We brought some ideas that would help their business, help the race team be successful that other banks weren't talking to them about. And so they told us they were going to move the relationship. And you know how this industry works. I mean, it's a model where you tend to sponsor a team if you want to get business for the team. And at the time, we just didn't allocate our marketing dollars that way, and we told them we weren't be able to. But if you thought we were the right bank for you, then we'd love to have the relationship. And they did. So we kicked off the bank relationship in 2010, and they said they were going to keep talking to us about what the opportunities are, what does the fan base look like, who are the businesses that are connected to it. So really, over the next year and a half, we got to understand the opportunity better, and so in 2012, we put together the partnership and thought this is going to be fantastic for the Carolinas. This will be something that we can really take advantage of to better serve the fan base that's here, to help the suppliers and the teams that are here, to help achieve their financial objectives, and so we launched it then and. We haven't looked back. I mean, it's been fantastic. The one thing that has changed since 2012 is that we really thought this is something we capitalize on the Carolinas. And what we learned pretty quickly is that NASCAR touches people
everywhere,
all across the country, businesses all across the country. And so what was originally a regional play has now turned into a national platform for us.
It's a beautiful national platform. And this weekend's Daytona. And Fifth Third's going to be on the 17, and the 17 is hungry to make the playoffs. So I would imagine Mr. Buescher is going to be heavily involved in the race. It's going to be great exposure for Fifth Third. And that, I'm telling you, I've seen the wrap this week. Looks incredible. That anytime really Fifth Third is on the car for whatever reason, the logo, the colors, it pops. It really does. And it looks really sweet this weekend. Dave Morton's our guest, the Senior Vice President and Managing Director, Motorsports and Automotive Aftermarket. Let's continue the conversation. Let's talk about some of the activations that they've done with RFK. When we come back right here, it's SiriusXM's Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing on SiriusXM NASCAR Channel 90. We're back here, Backstretch Banter on SiriusXM NASCAR Channel 90 with RFK Racing. I'm Chris Childers. Want to thank everybody for helping us out today. On the show, our producer, Alec Walt, back in D.C. Great people that help us with RFK, Kevin Woods, Brandon Lee, Thomas Burfield, Elijah, just fabulous people that help us put the show on every single week. So we appreciate them as we go to Daytona. This weekend, we got the number 6 that's going to be decked out in the wrap of the King's Hawaiian Pretzel Bites, and the number 17 is going to be in the Fifth Third Bank wrap this week. And we've been talking to Dave Morton, who's the Senior Vice President, Managing Director for Motorsports and Automotive Aftermarket there with Fifth Third Bank. You mentioned a little bit about the activation. We know the car is going to look beautiful this weekend. I've seen the wrap, and it looks absolutely outstanding. It's going to be a really cool one that pops on the track in Daytona. But give us some of the other things that you guys do at Fifth Third to really engage your customer base using RFK from an activation standpoint.
Yeah, so there's really 3 ways. One we've talked about is the brand exposure on the car, and we think we've got a fast-looking car. It was designed that way to make it look like the paint's literally flying off the car, or our shields, and that's phenomenal. I mean, there's really no other sport that I'm aware of that you get the type of exposure potential as you do in NASCAR, and we hope that through that we're reaching a lot of fans that we can help out along the way. The B2B, the businesses that are connected to racing, RFK Racing has been fantastic in helping us there. So you think about all the race teams, the tracks, the supplier base, all the other corporate sponsors that are involved in racing, and RFK has done a great job of connecting us with those businesses, giving us access that we wouldn't necessarily have, and giving us access at a squeeze-it level. When we're at a trade show, when we're at a track, it's like being at a trade show.
Sure.
I mean, there's no other sport that has the level of businesses that are involved in it as NASCAR does, and nobody does better than RFK Racing and connecting their sponsors with other companies that are involved in it, both on the track as well as off the track. So, for example, at the Performance Racing Industry Trade Show, we've been heavily involved with that. We're a founding member of PRI. And we've been exhibiting there for about the last 9 years. And RFK Racing goes to the show with us, and they make warm introductions to exhibitors and other people there. So it's a fantastic partnership in helping us get a return on our investment so we can continue to invest in the sport like we've done for so many years. And then the other element to it is that incredible experience that you can give guests out at the track that money can't buy. And we just did it last weekend at Michigan, and we'll do it again down in Daytona. And it's I refer to it as we're creating emotional souvenirs, and we're imprinting in their minds a memory that they shared with other family members that they'll never forget, and that even if they're relatively wealthy, they can't necessarily buy, and they haven't had that experience before, even if they're a big NASCAR fan. And we get to spend lots of time with them out at the track and deepen the relationship. So it works so well, and better than any other type of activation we've ever done in other sports.
Sitting in a pit box is pretty memorable. There's no doubt when you can get up there, and that's one of the cool things that typically the partners have access to. It is something that any client, any partner would be like, okay, this is cool. This is cool.
We had a top prospect, commercial prospect for us out at the Michigan race. Big F1 fans.
Oh yeah.
And we had them, of course, in the garage and on the hauler, and then we had them on the pit box.
Oh yeah.
They were blown away with what they saw, and the level of competition, the technology that was out there, and the access that they got. It was really something for them. Yeah,
especially compared to F1. Are you kidding me? The access in NASCAR is through the roof compared to that.
Yeah.
Where else are you guys involved? I know you are head of the motorsports, and NASCAR is a big part of it, but not the only part of it. Where else do you find value in reaching your customer base?
So we've been really fortunate to align with several iconic sports teams. Obviously, RFK Racing was where it all began, and with the legend Jack Roush. But we're also a great partnership with Rahal Letterman Lanigan, RLL Racing, Bobby Rahal, another legend, and then in NHRA drag racing with Kalitta Motorsports, and Connie Kalitta has been an amazing legend as well. So all three partnerships have been extremely effective. All three allow us to reach a fan base that is distinct, some crossover, but distinct, and also giving us access to some businesses that maybe don't cross over. But we've been fortunate in that each one is helping us communicate out that, hey, we love motorsports. We're dedicated to it. We're invested in supporting it. But then they also help amplify each other as well, and just overall help elevate our success.
Fifth Third Bank, it's incredible. You can find a local branch near you. I drive by them probably, I don't know, at least 4 or 5 times a day. I feel like they're everywhere, and they're easy to find. They are super accessible. The service is off the charts, and they love autosports. They love motorsports. They're one of us. They're a part of it, whether it's drag racing or IndyCar racing. I love IndyCar racing. I've seen you guys all over there, all over the tracks. I go to a bunch of races with Fifth Third, and certainly with RFK. So it's noticed. It's noticed by the racing community. We appreciate it, and I think certainly try to give that love back as customers. So thank you for spreading the love of Fifth Third, and we appreciate you coming on today.
It's great to be here, and we hope we can be a Fifth Third better for all race fans. Fifth Third better means 166.7% better if you do the math.
We'd like to be a Fifth Third better with a 17 card, have it in victory lane, and locked into the playoff this week. That would be very nice to be a Fifth Third better this week for Chris Buescher and company in that Fifth Third Bank car. Dave, thank you. It's great to see you. Great to meet you. Thank you so much.
Pleasure to be here. See you in victory lane.
Absolutely. Let's knock on wood. Fingers crossed for that this weekend. That's it. Great show today. Again, want to thank everybody at RFK. We will see you next week. Hopefully fresh off some victory lane footage for RFK in Daytona. It'd be nice to see. If it's not the 17, the 6 would be just as good. But we'll see you next week. It's Backstretch Banter with RFK Racing. I'm Chris Childers.